Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring this whole real estate wholesaling thing.
Okay.
And we're going to be doing it using this PDF called How to Make Money with Real Estate by King Kang.
Sounds promising, right?
It does sound promising.
Yeah.
A little bit,
A little clickbaity, maybe?
Clickbaity, yeah.
But hey, you never know. We might uncover some hidden gems in there.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll learn how to make millions in real estate, right?
All right, so what's the game plan for today's deep dive?
Well, I figured we could start by, taking a little look at King Kang himself.
Okay, get to know the man behind the millions, right?
Yeah, he actually shares quite a bit about, his own journey coming to the U.S. from Vietnam.
Oh, wow, that's quite a story.
Yeah, and, kind of like working his way up from, like, picking berries to selling shoe insoles.
Shoe insoles. Okay, that's a new one.
Yeah, and eventually finding success in real estate.
All right, so classic rags to riches story.
Yeah, you could say that.
So I'm curious, do you think there's something about his background, his specific experiences that might have, given him an edge in real estate?
I mean, it definitely sounds like he's got that hustle mentality, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That willingness to adapt and kind of like seize opportunities wherever he sees them.
Right, and not afraid to, start from the bottom and work his way up.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the backstory.
Yeah.
Now let's get into the good stuff. What's the secret sauce? What's his system?
So he lays out this 6-step process for real estate wholesaling.
6 steps.
Which he claims is the fastest way to make millions in real estate.
Fastest, huh? Well, we'll see about that.
Yeah, we'll see, right?
Yeah.
But before we jump into the steps, maybe you could give us a quick overview of what wholesaling actually is.
All right, so basically it's kind of like flipping houses.
Right.
But instead of, actually buying the property, fixing it up and reselling it, you're flipping the contract. Okay.
So you're finding these motivated sellers, people who need to sell quickly for whatever reason.
Right.
You get the property under contract at a below market price.
Mm-hmm.
Then you find a buyer who's willing to pay a little bit more for that contract.
Okay.
And you pocket the difference.
So you're like the middleman.
Exactly. You're connecting the dots between motivated sellers and eager buyers.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So walk us through these 6 steps that he talks about.
Sure. So step 1 is finding the motivated seller, which, that's easier said than done. Right?
Yeah.
Step 2 is negotiating the deal.
Okay.
Making sure you're getting a good price that leaves room for profit.
Ooh, right.
Step 3, you got to secure that contract, get everything in writing, make sure it's legally sound.
Okay.
Now, step 4, this is where the hustle comes in.
Okay.
You got to find a buyer for that contract.
Right.
Someone who's ready to take it off your hands and close the deal.
Then, step 5, you assign that contract to the buyer.
Okay.
And finally, step 6, everyone goes to closing and you collect your assignment fee.
Oh, okay. So you don't actually, handle any of the renovations or anything like that?
Nope. You're strictly the middleman.
Okay.
You're in and out, hopefully quickly, with your profit.
Right. So speed is key here.
Yeah.
He even calls it the fastest way to real estate millions, right?
He does, but I'm a little skeptical about that fastest part.
Okay.
I mean, even finding a motivated seller can take time, right?
That's true.
And then you got to negotiate, get the contract, find a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it all happens overnight.
Right. It's not instant millions like some people might think.
No, definitely not.
So what are some of the potential pitfalls we need to be aware of, if we're thinking about trying this wholesaling thing?
Well, one thing that Kang kind of glosses over is the legal side of things.
Okay.
Assigning contracts can get tricky. Depending on your state, there might be specific regulations you need to follow.
Right.
And if you're not careful, you could end up in some legal hot water.
That's a good point.
Then there's the ethical aspect.
Okay.
I mean, you're dealing with sellers who might be in vulnerable positions.
Right.
Facing foreclosure, financial distress. So you got to make sure you're being transparent with them, not taking advantage of their situation.
Right. So integrity is important.
Absolutely. You want to make a profit, but not at the expense of someone else's well-being.
Okay, so we got to find that balance.
Yeah.
So let's talk about finding those motivated sellers.
Okay.
Kang mentions a few methods.
Right.
Like driving for dollars, scouring lists, even using, what are they called? bandit signs?
Yeah, those little signs you see stapled to telephone poles.
Exactly.
I mean, those can be effective, but they can also be illegal in some areas.
Okay, so that's something to watch out for.
Yeah, you gotta do your research, know the local regulations before you start plastering signs everywhere.
Good point. Good point.
And driving for dollars, that can be super time-consuming, right?
Yeah.
Just driving around neighborhoods looking for distressed property.
Right. Not exactly the most efficient method.
No, not really.
And lists can be expensive.
Yeah, and they're not always accurate.
Okay, so it sounds like there's no easy way to find those motivated sellers.
I mean, there are ways, but they all require some effort and due diligence. You
Right.
can't just sit back and expect deals to fall into your lap.
So let's say we found a potential seller.
Right.
We've done our due diligence. We think they might be motivated.
Right.
How do we actually determine what to offer?
Good question.
Kang gives us this formula.
Oh, yeah. A magic formula.
Well, he makes it sound pretty straightforward.
Okay, I'm all ears.
He says you take the after repair value, or ARV,
Okay, ARV.
multiply that by 0.7,
Mm-hmm.
then subtract the estimated repair costs,
Okay.
and then subtract your desired profit.
And
that gives you your offer price.
okay, so it seems simple enough,
Yeah.
but how accurate is this formula in reality?
That's what I'm wondering, too.
I mean, determining the ARV accurately, that takes some serious market knowledge.
Right.
You got to research comparable properties, understand local trends, factor in location, property type, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's not just plugging numbers into a calculator.
No, definitely not.
So it sounds like experience and a keen eye for value are just as important as any formula.
For sure. I mean, formulas can be helpful as a starting point, but they can't replace real-world knowledge and good old-fashioned gut instinct.
So King really stresses getting the property under contract quickly.
Yeah, she's all about speed.
But isn't there a risk of underestimating repair costs?
Oh, absolutely.
Or maybe overlooking some hidden problems if you rush the process?
That's a huge risk, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to have a good network of contractors, inspectors, people you trust to give you accurate estimates.
Okay.
Because if your numbers are off, the deal could fall apart.
Right, and then you're stuck with a contract you can't sell.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say we found the seller, we've negotiated the deal.
Right.
We've got the contract, we're feeling good.
Okay.
Now we got to find a buyer for that contract, right?
Now the real hustle begins.
Yeah. So where do these buyers come from?
Well, Kang suggests a few places, like real estate investor groups,
Okay.
online platforms, word-of-mouth referrals. He even talks about approaching people who've recently renovated properties in the area.
Interesting.
Yeah, the idea is that those people are likely looking for more deals.
Okay, so it's all about networking.
Networking's huge, yeah.
Building relationships.
Yeah, you got to be active in the local real estate community,
Okay.
attending meetings, connecting online, letting people know what you're looking for.
So it's not as simple as just like listing a contract online and waiting for the offers to roll in.
Not really.
You're actively cultivating a network of potential buyers.
Yeah.
It sounds like wholesaling is as much about people skills as it is about property knowledge.
You got it. You got to be able to build trust, negotiate effectively, understand what your buyers are looking for.
That makes sense.
Kang's book, it's good for the basics, but it doesn't really capture that human element,
Yeah, that's the good point.
which I think is crucial for success.
Okay, now, you mentioned the legal complexities earlier.
Right.
What are some specific red flags our listeners should be aware of when it comes to the legal and ethical aspects of wholesaling?
Okay, so first and foremost, you got to understand your state's laws regarding contract assignment. Some states are stricter than others.
Okay.
Failing to comply could land you in some serious trouble.
Right, so do your research.
Definitely.
And then there's the ethical side of working with distressed sellers. Transparency is key.
Right.
You got to be upfront about your role as a wholesaler, explain the process clearly,
Okay.
make sure the seller understands they're selling below market value. So it's about finding that balance, right?
Exactly.
Between making a profit and operating ethically.
You can't just exploit someone's situation for a quick buck.
It sounds like integrity is a crucial factor here.
It really is.
And that integrity extends to your dealings with buyers as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You got to be honest about the property's condition, disclose any known issues.
Provide accurate information.
Okay.
So that the transaction goes smoothly.
It's all about building that trust and maintaining a good reputation.
For sure. Your reputation is everything in this business.
Okay, so now Kang briefly mentions this idea of scaling up your wholesaling business.
Right. Building a team.
Yeah, by building a team. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's more of a long-term strategy.
Okay.
Initially, you'll probably be handling most things yourself.
Right.
But as you gain experience, close more deals, you might start to feel overwhelmed. That's when building a team can be helpful.
Okay, so it's not something you'd recommend for someone just starting out.
I mean, it depends on the individual,
Okay.
but I think it's generally better to have a solid grasp on all aspects of the business
Right.
before you start delegating to others.
So you don't want to jump into team building too early.
Exactly.
But on the other hand, could having the right team members actually accelerate your learning?
That's an interesting point.
Maybe if you have people who complement your strengths and weaknesses,
Yeah, that's the key, right?
Yeah.
Building a team that fills in your gaps.
Okay, so it's all about strategic team building.
Strategic and self-awareness.
Self-awareness, yeah.
You got to know your own strengths and weaknesses,
Right.
and then build a team that complements those.
Okay, now let's talk about something Kang really emphasizes throughout his book.
All right, what's that?
It's mindset and mentorship.
Okay, the mental game.
Yeah, he talks about, perseverance, the need for constant learning, and the value of seeking guidance from experienced mentors.
I mean, those are important principles in any field, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But how do they actually apply to the real world of real estate wholesaling?
I think they're absolutely essential,
Okay.
especially in a field as competitive as real estate.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to face setbacks. You're going to get rejections.
Right.
So you need that perseverance to keep going.
That grit, that resilience.
Exactly.
You got to be able to bounce back from those challenges
All
and
right.
keep moving forward.
Otherwise, you'll just give up.
And what about mentorship? What are your thoughts on that?
Kang mentions it, but he doesn't really go into detail about, how to find a good mentor
Yeah, that's true.
or the potential downsides of choosing the wrong one.
Right. There are definitely some pitfalls there.
So what advice would you give to our listeners on that front?
I think the most important thing is to be discerning.
Okay.
Don't just jump at the first person who offers to mentor you.
Mm-hmm.
Look for someone with a proven track record.
Right.
Someone who aligns with your values.
Okay.
Someone who's genuinely invested in your success.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
You're right. Absolutely. Ask about their experience, their approach, their mentorship style.
So it's not just about finding someone who's made a lot of money.
No, it's about finding someone who can guide you,
Right.
support you,
Mm-hmm.
and help you avoid those costly mistakes.
Help you navigate the complexities of the business
Exactly.
while staying true to your own ethical compass.
Now, before we move on, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Kang focuses a lot on the tactical side of wholesaling,
Right.
The steps, the formulas.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the psychological side?
Okay.
What kind of personality traits do you think are essential for someone to thrive in this fast-paced, often cutthroat world of real estate?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, I think you definitely need to be comfortable with risk.
Okay. Risk tolerance.
Yeah, because there's no guarantee of success.
Right.
You're putting yourself out there. You're investing time and money.
And you're dealing with a lot of uncertainty.
The market can change. Deals can fall through. Unexpected problems can arise.
Right. So you got to be able to handle that pressure.
Mm-hmm. And not let setbacks discourage you.
I think you also need to be a good negotiator.
Yeah, for sure.
You're constantly negotiating with sellers, buyers, contractors.
Right.
So you got to be able to, stand your ground, make persuasive arguments.
Mm-hmm. Find that win-win solution.
Exactly.
And let's not forget about rejection.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to face a lot of rejection in this business.
Yeah, not every lead is going to turn into a deal.
Right. So you got to have thick skin.
Mm-hmm. You got to be able to brush it off and move on to the next opportunity.
That resilience we talked about.
Exactly.
And don't forget the hustle factor.
Oh, yeah.
Kang talks about driving for dollars, cold calling, networking.
This is not a passive income gig.
Definitely not.
You got to be proactive, persistent, willing to put yourself out there. And you got to be organized, detail-oriented, able to manage multiple tasks at once.
Right. You're essentially running your own business.
Well, exactly. Even if you're starting small.
So it's a lot more than just, finding a house and flipping a contract.
Yeah. It's a lot of hard work and dedication.
And self-awareness, right?
Yeah. Knowing yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your risk tolerance.
Whether this kind of hustle aligns with your personality.
Exactly.
Now, this has got me thinking.
Oh, what's that?
We've been talking about real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this whole wholesaling model, finding undervalued assets, connecting buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
Could that be applied to other markets as well?
Interesting question.
Like, could you do this with cars, businesses,
Okay.
even digital assets?
I mean, it would require different knowledge, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
But the underlying principle seems sound.
Right. It's all about understanding supply and demand, finding those opportunities where you can connect the dots.
And having the hustle to make it happen.
Exactly. So maybe this deep dive is about more than just real estate.
Maybe it's about sparking new ideas, expanding our thinking about how to create value and find opportunities.
Yeah, I like that.
So what do we have next on our agenda for this deep dive?
Well, next I thought we could get into the nitty-gritty of analyzing properties.
Right. Let's get our hands dirty.
See how to actually determine if a deal is worth pursuing.
Sounds good. Let's dive in.
We've been so focused on the seller side, finding them, negotiating, understanding their motivations.
Yeah.
But what about the buyers?
Oh, good point. Yeah, you can't flip a contract if you don't have someone to flip it to, right?
Exactly. So who are these people, scooping up these wholesale contracts? What are they looking for?
That's actually something Khan doesn't really dive into.
That's interesting.
He kind of assumes we all know who the buyers are.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth thinking about,
Okay.
Who are these people? What are their motivations?
Right, because they're obviously not looking for, a move-in ready, pristine property.
No, probably not, unless they're getting an amazing deal.
Yeah. So what's in it for them?
Well, I imagine it's a mix of different types of buyers.
Okay.
You've got your classic house flippers,
Right.
looking for a quick turnaround, buy, fix, sell. Then you might have landlords looking to build their rental portfolios.
Okay, that makes sense.
And maybe even some individual home buyers hoping to snag a deal, even if it needs a little work.
So understanding your buyer pool is just as important as understanding the sellers.
Oh, absolutely. You got to know who you're targeting.
All right.
You can't just find any buyer. You need the right buyer for that particular property.
Yeah, and for the level of repairs needed, right?
Exactly. A seasoned flipper might not flinch at a major rehab,
Right.
but a first-time homeowner probably wants something more move-in ready.
Okay, so your marketing and networking have to be targeted towards the right audience.
For sure, you got to know who you're talking to.
It's starting to sound like this wholesaling thing is a lot more work than Kang initially let on.
Well, it's definitely not passive income. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things to keep track of.
Yeah, there's market research, legal due diligence, relationship building on both sides, the seller side and the buyer side.
You're essentially running your own business.
Yeah, and where does he talk about actually managing all of this?
That's where that scaling up part comes in.
Right, building a team.
Which, to be honest, he only briefly mentions towards the end of the book.
Okay, so is that something you'd recommend doing right away? Or is that more for, seasoned wholesalers?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be hesitant to build a team too early.
Okay.
There's so much to learn in the beginning. I think it's better to have a solid grasp on all aspects of the business.
Right, before you start delegating to others.
Exactly. You want to know what you're doing before you start teaching other people how to do it.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then again, there's the counter-argument, right?
Okay.
What if having the right team members from the start could actually accelerate your learning? Maybe if you have people who complement your strengths and weaknesses,
Yeah, maybe.
you could learn faster, grow faster.
Probably depends on the individual, right?
Yeah, their strengths, their weaknesses, their learning style.
And their risk tolerance, too.
Right, because bringing on a team adds another layer of complexity.
Okay, so it sounds like there's no one-size-fits-all answer here.
No, it's a decision that each person has to make for themselves.
Based on their own circumstances and goals?
Exactly. And that brings us to a key insight that Kang doesn't explicitly state.
Okay, what's that?
Wholesaling, like any business, requires self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
You got to know yourself,
Okay.
your skills, your gaps, your comfort zone.
And then build a team that complements all of that.
Exactly. It's not just about hiring people. It's about building a system that works for you.
Okay, so strategic team building.
Strategic team building based on your own needs and the evolving needs of your business.
Which makes me wonder, what are some of the biggest challenges people face when building a wholesaling team? Kang makes it sound fairly simple, but I imagine it's not always smooth sailing.
Oh, it can definitely be tricky.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest challenges is finding reliable and trustworthy people.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
You're entrusting them with critical aspects of your business.
Right. So you got to be careful who you bring on board.
Exactly. Thorough vetting is essential.
Okay, and what about delegating tasks effectively?
That's another challenge.
Yeah.
You got to be clear about roles, responsibilities, expectations.
Right. You don't want any confusion or frustration.
No, you need clear communication and a system for accountability.
It's almost like you're creating a mini business within a business.
Yeah, you're building a structure, a culture that supports both individual growth and the overall goals of the team.
So it's about more than just handing off tasks. It's about creating a system.
A system that works, yeah.
And what about the people side of things?
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, managing personalities, resolving conflicts, fostering a positive work environment,
Those are all essential leadership skills.
which Kang barely touches on.
Yeah, he kind of glosses over the human element.
It seems like that's often underestimated in these, get-rich-quick schemes.
Right, they make it sound like it's all about the numbers, the formulas.
Yeah, but as we've seen, real estate wholesaling is a people business.
It's all about relationships.
Building relationships.
Like maintaining relationships.
Yeah, with sellers, buyers, contractors, investors.
You got to be able to connect with people, build trust, communicate effectively.
So those soft skills are just as important as the hard skills.
Absolutely, and that's something our listeners should keep in mind.
Whether they're pursuing wholesaling or any other entrepreneurial venture.
People skills are essential.
Okay, now speaking of people skills, Kang talks a lot about finding motivated sellers.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really address the potential ethical dilemmas involved.
That's a good point. It's not all black and white.
No, it's not.
You're often dealing with people in difficult circumstances.
Right, facing foreclosure, financial distress. Maybe they've inherited a property they can't handle.
Exactly. So there's a fine line between offering a solution and taking advantage of their situation.
Yeah, you don't want to be preying on people's vulnerability.
No, that's not ethical.
So how do you approach wholesaling ethically?
Well, I think transparency is key.
Okay.
Being upfront about your role as a wholesaler.
Right. Explain the process clearly.
Make sure the seller understands they're selling below market value.
So it's about providing options, not pressure.
Exactly. And it's about being fair in your offers.
Okay.
Just because someone's in a tough situation doesn't mean you should lowball them.
Right. You can make a profit while still treating people with respect and integrity.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance.
I think that's a crucial takeaway for our listeners.
Yeah, it's not just about the bottom line.
No, it's about how you get there.
Ethical considerations should be woven into every aspect of your business.
Okay, now let's circle back to Kang's emphasis on mindset and mentorship.
The mental game.
Yeah, he talks about the power of perseverance, the need for constant learning, and the value of seeking guidance from experienced mentors.
Right, but how tangible is this advice?
Yeah, is it just motivational fluff? Or can we find concrete examples of how these principles play out in the real world of wholesaling?
I think they're absolutely essential for success,
Upset.
especially in a field as challenging and competitive as real estate. You're going to face setbacks, you're going to get rejections.
Right.
So you need that perseverance to keep going, that grit, that resilience.
Exactly.
Got to be able to bounce back from those challenges and keep moving forward.
And mentorship can be a huge help in that regard.
Oh, for sure.
Having someone who's been there, done that, can provide invaluable guidance and support.
Right. They can help you navigate the ups and downs of the business.
Celebrate the wins.
Analyze the losses.
And just keep you grounded when things get crazy.
Exactly. Because it can get crazy.
Yeah, so mentorship is definitely something to consider.
But as we discussed earlier, not all mentors are created equal.
Right. So how do you find a good one?
Well, I think it starts with doing your research.
Okay.
Don't just go for the biggest name or the most flashy success story. Talk to people who've worked with potential mentors.
Okay.
Get a sense of their teaching style, their values, their long-term track record.
So look beyond the marketing and the testimonials.
Exactly, and trust your gut.
Okay.
If something feels off, it probably is.
So find a mentor who aligns with your goals and your values.
Yeah, someone who's genuinely invested in your success.
Now, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
what a thought-provoking question for our listeners.
All right, hit me.
We've been analyzing Kang's approach to wholesaling, right? But what if we flip the script?
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Instead of focusing on finding motivated sellers,
Yeah.
what if we focused on identifying motivated buyers first?
Interesting twist.
Could that be a viable strategy?
I mean, it would definitely require a different approach.
Right, a different mindset.
Yeah, instead of searching for distressed properties, you'd be searching for eager buyers.
Right, and then tailoring your property search to their specific needs and criteria.
It almost sounds like a more targeted, customer-centric approach.
Yeah, it does.
You're focusing on the demand first,
Mm-hmm.
and then finding the supply to meet that demand.
It could potentially streamline the process, right?
Maybe, and reduce the risk of holding on to contracts that you can't move,
Okay, so it's all about understanding supply and demand.
but applying it from a different angle.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Just something to think about, something to explore.
And maybe that's what this deep dive is all about, right?
Yeah, sparking new ideas, challenging assumptions, finding creative solutions.
expanding our thinking about how we approach real estate and business in general.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay, so we've really dug into this wholesaling thing.
Yeah.
From Kang's story and all his, rags to riches to the actual steps, the formulas,
the marketing,
the legal stuff, ethical considerations.
the whole 9 yards.
It's definitely more nuanced than he initially makes it seem.
Yeah, it's not just, find a house, flip a contract, make millions.
No, not at all.
There's a lot more to it than that.
There's a lot of work involved.
Yeah, and a lot of knowledge and skills you got to develop.
Especially on that, people side of things.
Right, understanding people, building relationships, that's crucial.
And, we talked about mindset,
Yeah, Kang talks a lot about mindset.
but I think that applies just as much to the wholesaler themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Like what kind of person actually thrives in this kind of business?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's not for everyone.
No, definitely not.
You got to be able to handle rejection,
Oh, yeah, lots of rejection.
pressure of negotiations.
The uncertainty of the market.
It takes a certain personality type, I think.
Resilience is huge.
Resilience, yes.
You got to be able to bounce back from setbacks,
Right. Because there are going to be setbacks.
Deals fall through, unexpected costs pop up, buyers back out at the last minute.
And it's not passive income either,
No, not at all.
like some people might think.
It's active hustle day in and day out.
Yeah, King talks about driving for dollars, networking, cold calling.
You got to be out there making things happen.
So you got to have that drive, that motivation.
And the organizational skills to keep it all straight.
Right, because you're essentially running your own business.
Exactly, even if you're starting small.
Okay, so self-awareness is key.
Yeah. Knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, your risk tolerance.
Whether this whole wholesaling hustle actually aligns with your personality.
And your goals, too.
Yeah, because it's not just about making money, right?
No, it's about building a sustainable business, something you can be proud of.
And that brings us back to mentorship.
Right. Finding someone who can guide you, support you.
Because having that experienced voice in your ear can be invaluable.
Yeah, especially when you're just starting out.
But, as we said, not all mentors are created equal.
No, definitely not.
So how can our listeners find a mentor who's not just successful, but also ethical?
Yeah, someone who genuinely wants to help them succeed.
Someone who's not just in it for themselves.
I think it starts with doing your research.
Okay.
Look beyond the flashy marketing, the testimonials.
Talk to people who've actually worked with them.
Yeah, get a sense of their teaching style, their values.
And their track record, too.
Long-term track record, not just a few quick wins.
Right, because anyone can get lucky once or twice.
Exactly. You want someone who's consistently successful and ethical.
So, do your due diligence.
And trust your gut.
If something feels off, it probably is.
Don't be afraid to walk away if it's not the right fit.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've analyzed Kang's strategies, dug into the legal and ethical considerations.
Talked about the psychology of the wholesaler themselves.
So the big question is real estate wholesaling a legitimate path to wealth?
The million-dollar question.
What do you think?
I think the answer is, it depends.
It depends.
Yeah, it depends on a lot of factors.
Okay, like what?
Your market, your skills, your work ethic,
Your network.
your ability to build relationships.
And let's be honest, a little bit of luck.
Yeah, luck always plays a role.
So it's not a guarantee.
No, definitely not.
Anyone who promises that is probably selling something.
Right, there's no such thing as easy money.
But for the right person, with the right approach,
And the willingness to learn and adapt.
could it be a viable way to build a business in real estate?
Absolutely.
So it's not a scam.
No, it's a legitimate business model.
But it's not a get-rich-quick scheme either.
No, it takes work, dedication, and a whole lot of hustle.
And I think that's what we want our listeners to take away from this deep dive.
Yeah, not a blind belief in one person's system.
But a framework for critical thinking,
For questioning assumptions.
doing your own research.
And ultimately making the decision that's right for you.
Whether that's wholesaling, some other form of real estate investing, or something else entirely.
We just want to empower you to make informed decisions.
And to approach any opportunity with a healthy dose of skepticism.
And a willingness to learn and grow.
So, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of real estate wholesaling.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking.
And maybe even a little bit inspiring.
And who knows, maybe we'll see you out there flipping contracts.
Just remember, do your research, build those relationships, and always operate with integrity.
Until next time, happy hustling.